Lee Priest had some of the most incredible arms bodybuilding has ever seen. But Lee wasn't simply trying to become muscular. He wanted to look freaky, almost like a cartoon character or a superhero. Today, we're going to watch the training behind that physique and find out how much of Lee's approach a normal lifter should actually copy. Let's decode it.
Probably like everyone else, I always looked at Arnold because he was the most known. But then I sort of didn't, because Arnold was so much taller than me, and I knew I'd never be that tall. I sort of couldn't really relate to his body type. So I sort of started liking people like Tom Platz, anyone that was sort of freaky, Sergio Oliva, who had the big arms and just that thick, dense looking bird or fox with all that thick muscle. And then it was like, I always liked Tom Platz, at least one that looked like that. But then as things went on, I sort of like Eddie Robinson for his freaky legs and arms. But if I was to say at this stage who I like the most, it'd probably be like, probably Mike Matarazzo's arms and calves because they're so freaky. But yet, one overall would probably be like Paul Dillette. I really like Paul, he's a nice guy. We get on really great, and that's the sort of thing I like. It's sort of sometimes hard for me too because still being young, all these people I compete against now, they were sort of like my heroes and idols I look up to. And then now, like, I even told Paul when I do these shows and sometimes I place ahead of him, I feel bad because there's nothing worse than sort of placing ahead of someone you've looked up to. And sort of, I wouldn't care less if I came 10th to all those guys because I still look up to them because I've always admired them. So if they placed ahead of me at every show, I wouldn't care. I'm just happy to compete on the same stage as him or anyone else. So, people always say things about Paul, he hasn't got shape. But when you look at Paul, here's what I think bodybuilders should look like. He's got that freaky cartoon look about him. He's got those big shoulders, big arms, tiny waist, huge legs. It's like when I started bodybuilding, that's what I thought bodybuilding should be. And you have all these people saying, well, that's overdone. You shouldn't look like that. You've got to have this pleasing physique. But yet, those people who say that, they're the ones who normally can't achieve it. So that's why they say it. But if anyone had the chance, they'd probably all want to look like that or have that freaky look because that's what we all aim for. When you look at cartoons these days, look at action figures, they've all got that freaky look about them, that sort of muscles bulging out everywhere. So that's what I hope to achieve.
Okay, this explains Lee Priest almost immediately. He wasn't chasing a normal athletic physique. He wanted people to look at him and almost question whether what they were seeing was real. He wanted the muscles to look exaggerated.
Myself, I want to. People say I look like that now, but to me, I'm not satisfied. So as long as I'm not satisfied, that always makes me train harder. So I'm just gonna see what happens. I'm just gonna try to get the freaky look. And sometimes when I look at Paul, I think there's no way I can look like that. But then sometimes I think hopefully I can. So I'll see what happens. But they're the sort of people I look up to now. Paul, Mike Matarazzo, like Aaron Baker's got a great sort of freaky physique, I think. And anyone that's normally freaky with body parts, like I admire Chris Cormier, Flex Wheeler, but they got the nice shape and they got nice muscle mass too. But it's like those the physiques like Flex and them I really admire. But to me, I could never look like that because I haven't sort of got that body type. So I've always gone after the freaky type. Whereas I still respect all those guys for what they've done with their physiques. But me personally, I like the freakier type. So that's what I always try and look like. I picture like the cartoon characters or that Max Rep you see in the magazine, something like that that looks just that freaky. So when people walk past, they sort of stop and look, and they sort of can't believe what they see. So that's like my ideal of a bodybuilder is just that freaky look about them where you can't really believe they don't look human. So that's what I want to look like eventually.
That is a very different goal from simply wanting to look fit and muscular. Lee wanted to create something extreme. The huge arms were not just another body part for him. They were part of the character he was trying to build.
I've always liked Superman ever since I was little. You can see in this picture here that says Destiny. This was me about 3 years old in a Superman suit. So I don't know, I've always liked him because I always just liked the strength and that he had. I've always liked the TV show when it was on the black and white one. So when I came here, there was so much Superman stuff, like the jewelry I've got and different things. I got like 15 different watches and all the stuff around.
And I think the Superman connection is important. We don't need to turn this into a psychology lesson, but it clearly shows us what motivated him. Since childhood, Lee associated muscle with strength, power, and this almost superhuman appearance. Bodybuilding gave him a way to physically become that character. But here is the question we need to answer. Did Lee's training create that freaky appearance? Or did Lee Priest already have the genetics to make almost any serious arm routine look incredible? Let's look at how he actually trained.
In the off season, I train like just once a day in the mornings, normally around 7 o'clock for like 2 hours. I do one body part a day. Like Monday I'll do legs, Tuesday I'll do back, Wednesday chest, Thursday arms, then Friday maybe shoulders and maybe some hamstrings again or some calves. I normally do calves every day, but just one exercise, 8 sets on that exercise. And my training's normally always been the same since I started. I do normally 20 sets per body part, sometimes more for legs, but it's always been 20 sets, like 4 different exercises or 5 different exercises, 4 to 5 sets on each, heavy as I can go, 6 to 8 reps. In the off season, I don't do too much cardio work, so I'm trying.
Lee says that his normal approach was around 20 sets for each body part, usually 4 or 5 exercises, 4 or 5 sets per exercise, and almost 6 to 8 repetitions with as much weight as he could control. So there is no secret exercise here. This is a very traditional high volume routine, but it is a light, comfortable volume. Lee is also trying to train heavily and with a high level of effort. So this is really a combination of high volume, heavy weights, and hard work. And coming directly after our Dorian Yates video, the contrast couldn't be bigger. Dorian believed that a very small number of brutally hard working sets was enough. Lee is using several exercises and accumulating much more total work. Both men build incredible physiques using almost opposite approaches.
I've always been a believer in training by feel. If I feel strong one day, I'll go heavy. If I don't feel strong, I won't push it. Whereas some people, that do bench press one day, they might bench press 3 plates. Next time they go to bench press, they're on 2 plates and they're, struggling and can't get the bar up, but yet mentally they want to go 3 plates. So when they do, the body's not rested and it's not recovered, so they normally get injured. So it's best to go by how your body feels. And if you don't feel like going heavy and you can't do it, don't push it because you're only going to get injured that way.
But Lee wasn't blindly following the numbers. He trained according to how his body felt. If he felt strong, he went heavy. If he didn't feel strong, he didn't force a weight simply because he had used it in the previous workout. That is important because 20 sets is already a lot of work. For a regular lifter, you have to ask whether every additional set is still stimulating growth or whether you are simply creating more fatigue. More work only helps while you can recover from it.
Come down just a little, right there, yeah. That's it. Good squeeze. Squeeze. Good. Perfect. Good. Control. Yes. Excellent. know. Stick an electric cable in and then drain it along with his energy there.
Now we can see what that high volume approach looks like in practice. Lee isn't going to perform one bicep exercise, one tricep exercise, and go home. He's going to attack the arms through several movements and slightly different angles.
It's a mental thing personally. It's like when I train at World Gym, people say that gym's too quiet. How do you train there? You need motivation. But motivation comes from within, as far as I'm concerned. Like I could train anywhere as long as I got weights and that's all you really need. Music doesn't motivate me. It's like one of those things. As long as deep down inside you know what you want to achieve, you can train anywhere. So
See that? Good. Beautiful. That was a good shot. Really beautiful. Great. How are you?
I think bodybuilding's made a difference for me because coming from Australia, I never really dreamed I'd ever go to America or any other country. So doing that, then coming over here to America, having an opportunity to come here, meet different people. Like training at Gold, you get even to meet the movie stars from movies who I never thought I'd meet. Sure, bodybuilding's not as rich as some sports, but it gives me a living where, I can afford rent for the place, I can afford the cars, I can afford the food on the table, so I can't really complain about much. But, if you try and compare it to football, basketball, sure you're going to get depressed because they're in the millions, but I reckon as long as you've got a place over your head and food on the table and clothes on your back, you're not too bad off.
Using different exercises can help you train the muscle through different positions. But that doesn't mean every lifter needs this much variety. Most regular lifters could probably build their arms perfectly well using fewer exercises performed consistently and progressively.
To me, it sort of helped me out that way, plus with the European tour, you get to travel to all the other European countries, so it's one of those things, bodybuilding sort of helped me see the world, meet different people, all ages, all races, so I really enjoyed it. Like, I've still probably got another 5, 10 years to go, so hopefully it'll only get better and maybe the prize money might go up, so we will be up there with the other sports, but I can't complain. Anytime you can sort of just train, eat and sleep and do what you love doing, get paid for it, it's not a bad job, so I'm not one to complain about it. Like when I first started training, I was, like I said, 13. I was actually 12 just before I turned 13. And I always did the basics like the squatting. I probably only done like 3 exercises like extensions, squats, leg press. For legs, chest would have been bench press, flat, incline, decline. And like back would have been chins, pull downs, and like a rowing movement. But I always trained heavy for like such a young age. Even when I was 13, I'd be squatting 3 plates, 3.5 plates, and people are always worried that's going to stunt your growth. You might hurt yourself, but I'm sort of the tallest one in my family. My mother's only 5'2", my sister's about 5'3".
Have you noticed the variety of exercises he's doing? One movement, he trains the biceps in a stress position. Another curl variation. One strong pressing movement for the triceps, and perhaps an extension. That would already cover a lot for most people. But you don't really need to reproduce every exercise Lee is doing. And this is one of the dangers of watching someone with arms like this. Because Lee looks incredible. Everything he does appears essential. But one of the biggest mistakes regular lifters make is copying a professional bodybuilder's routine exactly. Lee's recovery experience and overall situation are completely different from those of a natural or recreational lifter. His physique doesn't prove that every exercise was necessary. It only proves that the complete approach worked extremely well for Lee Priest. You might have also noticed how Lee is adding a little bit of body weight into some exercises. And this is where people normally divide into two groups. One group says this is terrible form, the other says Lee Priest had huge arms, so it clearly worked. The reality is somewhere between these two. Using a little momentum after completing several controlled repetitions can allow an experienced bodybuilder to extend the set. That is completely different from swinging the weight from the very first repetition because it is too heavy. The first can be an intensity technique. The second is normally ego lifting.
So that's one of the things. As long as, even though when you're young, though, you still have to watch it with the weights. As long as you can handle a weight that's right for you without cheating. You see so many people trying to lift too much weight and they're cheating and they're not doing exercise properly because they're training, their ego more than their muscle. It's like, how much weight can you lift? Like, it's not a matter of how much weight you can lift, it's how you lift it. So when I started training, I always lifted heavy.
What makes this especially interesting is that Lee himself says it isn't about how much weight you lift, it is about how you lift it. He criticizes people who use weights they cannot control and end up training their ego instead of the muscle, and that experience matters. A regular lifter copying Lee might only see the swinging, but they could completely miss the control repetitions, the muscular connection, and the years Lee had spent learning how far he could push it. Don't copy the appearance of an advanced technique without understanding its purpose.
So when I started training, I always lifted heavy for my size and weight. But I reckon, young kids, if they're going to start training, just take it easy, have someone watch them, so you do the exercises properly and not worry about the weight too much, just go through the movement. If you're squatting like one plate and you feel a bit stronger, just add a 5 to each side of the bar. You don't have to put another plate on, add a 5 one month, the next month add another, put a 10 on. So as long as you gradually build up and keep adding weight, the muscles will grow. But just, bodybuilding is a long-term sport. People want to get into bodybuilding and they want to, get feeling at a sort of time. I've been training 6 months, 8 months, nothing's happening. What am I doing wrong? But bodybuilding takes years, so it's one of those things. If you're going to stick at it, stick with it. Some years, some months, you might not see anything change. Your weights might not change, your body weight might not change. But then if you just keep persevering, next month it'll probably kick off again. So one of those things. Just give it time and take it easy, train hard, and it will happen, but it just takes time.
The biggest lesson from Lee Priest probably isn't that everybody should perform 20 sets for arms. It is that bodybuilding takes time. Lee started training extremely young. He stayed consistent for years, and he treated building his physique as something much bigger than a temporary fitness goal.
Just
kick it up.
when I compete for the crowd. As long as the crowd's happy, I'm in the best shape I can be in. Well, that's all. What 6 people down the front think of me doesn't really bother me. Like, even if I wasn't getting paid to do this, I'd still do it because I love the sport. It's not the money that makes me do it. So I could come dead last as long as I look good and the crowd's happy. Well, that's all I'm happy about.
And that tells us why he could keep doing this for so long. The physique wasn't only his job, it wasn't only about placings or money. Bodybuilding had become part of who he was. So, copy the consistency, copy the patient, copy the effort, and copy the ability to adjust the workout according to how your body feels. But don't automatically copy the complete volume. Don't copy the looser repetitions without understanding why they are being used. And don't expect this exact routine to give you Lee Priest's arms. Lee Priest wanted to build a physique that looked almost superhuman. And with some of the greatest arms bodybuilding has ever seen, it is difficult to argue that he didn't achieve it. But What do you think? Would you ever train arms with this much volume? Or did Lee's extraordinary genetics make this routine look more effective than it would be for everyone else? This was Lee Priest's superhero arms decoded.